Good evening, everybody. My name is Chally,
Hi.
and I'll be the host for our panel tonight with three well known guests in the Transformers comic book industry: Livio Ramondelli, Andrew Griffith, and Shane McCarthy. Guys, thank you so much for being here with us tonight and for being a part of Icon Online. I'd love to go around the table and give you all a minute to introduce yourselves. Let's start with Livio, Andrew, and then Shane. Livio, the floor is yours.
Hey, thanks for having us. Been looking forward to it. My name is Livio Ramondelli. I've been drawing Transformers for over 10 years now for IDW and a bunch of different projects. And just really glad we get to make this happen. I think a lot of us missed the convention scene like last year and this year a lot. So this is really cool to have happen.
Yeah, thanks for having us. I think the last time I saw Livio actually was like we might have done a couple of chats like this individually, but it was for a convention like this. So that's the way of socializing this year and to see everybody. So it's nice to be here and thanks for having us.
And again, thank you for having us as well. It's been, I think, we're October, guys, in New York Comic Con.
Yeah.
I think last year New York Comic Con was
Yeah,
the last time
yeah.
I saw
That was
you.
amazing. Yeah, but sorry. I'm Shane McCarthy, and I did some Transformers a little while ago now, I think. So, all Hail Megatron and so on. But it's a real pleasure to be here, and it's wonderful to see these two awesome gentlemen.
Well, we definitely are so
Fantastic.
excited to have you all here as well. I'm sure the viewers right now are so excited to dive into this panel. So, all of you guys, in your own way, have had a big influence in Transformers throughout the years, working on not only Transformers, but various other comic series as well. So much so, we actually got a good amount of questions for all of you guys, and we're going to jump right into that if you guys are ready.
Sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So, we got a couple everybody questions, and then we got a couple that are more for both Livio and Andrew, and then a couple for Shane. So we're gonna start with the everybody questions. So for everybody, we'll go around the table like how we did with the introductions. What inspired you to start working in the comic book industry, Livio?
I mean, I grew up like I'm sure like these two probably like just a fan of comics in general and really loving kind of the storytelling of it and understanding how you could tell a story like a movie but in a printed form. I really grew up being really interested in doing that. And then yeah, I mean, I think a lot of stuff I was interested in as a kid, like Transformers, like was very lucky to get to do eventually professionally. And so I think it really felt like an honor to get to portray these characters that meant so much to me growing up, like to do it, officially. And yeah, it's just one of those things like I grew up loving them and was hoping I'd get to work on it one day.
Yeah, very much the same for me. I grew up reading comics and loving like the movies of my childhood, and then I got into things. Started out with like Star Wars, and then I got into like GI Joe and Transformers, and then mainstream comics. And I just grew up reading that stuff, loving storytelling. I just started drawing mostly because of reading comics, and then just stuck with it. It was something I always wanted to do, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to do it. So.
Yeah, I think for me, I think that I realized I wanted to become a writer. So the idea was, what do I want to, what do I want to write for? And growing up, read a lot of comics and but a lot of books and everything as well. And I think ultimately the decision was to do comics because I like the visual component, but also the fact that it was so quick to get them out. So with books, it takes a long time, and with movies, it takes a long time. There's a lot more people involved with movies. But with comics, I quickly learned that it's like, wow, it's just a small handful of people, and you can really get your vision from point A to point B. And so that inspired me to want to. I was so excited about to be able to work in an industry where the special effects budget was unlimited. So myself and the artists could develop anything without fear of like, well, there's no CGI for that. So I felt like the only limitation was my imagination. So that was why comics were the destination.
So we've got a fun question here for you guys. First project in the comic book industry that you worked on. How did you start out?
Yeah, my first thing was Jim Lee had a company called Wildstorm that used to be a big comic publisher, and that was actually ended up my first place I worked. But when I got there, they had kind of transferred over to mostly being like a licensing video game kind of company. So the first thing I worked in comics, ironically, was for Jim Lee, but it was doing design work on the DC Universe MMO game. So it was interesting because you're surrounded by like Wildstorm and all the great artists that came out of there, and there was great artists there too. But we were doing kind of video game concept art, so it was unusual because like Jim Lee was like art directing the game, but that was still a blast. I mean, getting to design like Gotham City and Metropolis, and not just the big buildings, but like what does a trash can look like in Metropolis, who has a budget compared to like Gotham City? Like there was like really interesting like problem solving stuff, and that was my first thing in comics. That led me to doing comic conventions, which led to Transformers. So yeah.
And yeah, for me, I had taken part in some like online contests and things, and posted art online and DeviantArt, places like that at the time. And IDW had a contest to be the next cover artist, and I did pretty well in that, and it kind of got me noticed there. And I guess like a few months later, they were doing tie-in comics for the movies, and the artist, I guess, needed some help, so they brought me in as an inker. And then those characters are so complex to draw and so difficult to draw that I ended up doing a little more, some fill-in pages and things like that. And that was my first project, and that was Defiance for Revenge of the Fallen, I guess.
Nice.
Tie into that.
Yeah, my first job was Batman for the DC Comics.
Start small.
Yeah, it was. I guess I was just too stupid to realize I'm supposed to start like somewhere more achievable. But yeah, no, I was super lucky. It was just, I think I had a lot of luck on my side. But the first comic I did was 5-part story for Batman Legends of the Dark Knight. And then after that, it was some you're shaking your head, Livio.
It's a good way to start, man.
Right?
Yeah. Again, I had everybody in the industry that I've become friends with. We just like, you can't break in doing Batman. Stop wasting your time. And I was too stupid. And then on to Detective Comics. So Batman was my first job.
How much? Can I just ask real quick? How much freedom were you allowed on that? Was it pretty open or was it pretty controlled?
Yeah, it was a lot more than I was expecting, to be honest. It was really impressive on both of those too, because on Legend of the Dark Knight, it was a little more free because it's kind of wasn't the main title. But again, I was actually expecting a little more pushback, but I didn't get any. And then on the Detective Comics, I was able to do what I wanted. So there was a few little tweaks I wanted to do to Zaz, who was the villain, made him a little bit more of a romper stomper kind of skinhead. And it was again, I was very surprised. They were very accommodating. So
Awesome.
I guess I wasn't like running outside the boundaries though. And Batman should wear pink, like it was.
Like in the 60s, 50s, or a nice little tidbit for me. My very first project actually made the New York Times bestseller list. So,
oh wow,
because awesome. those movie tie-in comics like sell a crap load at the very beginning, and then nothing after that. So it made a really big splash at first. So.
What has been your favorite Transformers comic book scene or story arc?
I think for me, Autocracy was really special to me because it was kind of telling like an origin of Optimus Prime, but it was also working with Flint Dille, who was such a big part of the original animated series, and then Chris Metzen, and they were both like, I was pretty new at the time, and they were both, for all their experience, their success, they were like the coolest collaborators, and like really made me feel like part of a team, even though I was like definitely the young, inexperienced one. And then that story was great because it was basically Flint saying, like, when I was writing Optimus Prime for the series, here's all the stuff that I thought was kind of in his background we never got to see. So that was a really special experience for me.
I was afraid my answer was going to be a little self-serving, but since Livio referenced his own work, I will too. So I actually really liked the Robots in Disguise arc that I worked on with John Barber. It was just, for me, it was just the right tone of like, it was fun, but also serious, and like explored a new side of like the Transformers dynamics that you hadn't really seen that much of before after the war and everything. I know like Shane explored that a little bit in All Hail Megatron, but I felt like this was just it was more time to dig into like Cybertron post-war and everything. So I did like that story. I was proud to work on it.
I'm not going to say anything about what I wrote. So, so story-wise, I mean, for me, favorite, because growing up when I was a kid, I came from remote country Australia. So the comics I was reading as a kid were the big, oversized UK Transformer comics. I don't know if they were anywhere else, but and it was all the Furman stuff. So the one that stood out to me, I really loved Death's Head. I don't know if you guys know Death's Head. There was a story. It was where Rodimus was like demanding that he go back in time to find Galvatron, or I think it was like Wanted Galvatron or something. And so, but it was his time travel story, and Death's Head had to go and try and kill Galvatron, and he went back in time and blew up Bumblebee. So then he had to become Goldbug. And I remember as a kid, it just blew my mind, this whole, because right then the movie had just come out, and so Galvatron was new. So, but yeah, I really got into the old UK Transformers. Yeah, so I think that's the one that stays in my head.
Can I just say, I thought the question was favorite Transformers movies we worked on, not
Oh,
in general. So
Oh,
I didn't
okay.
say that of the
Oh,
favorite.
good, because I wasn't sure if I was going to go there, but once you did, I did.
add on to the question then. Go ahead. What's
Okay,
your favorite?
My favorite
Humble.
story that
Humble.
when I first met Shane, I told him how much I liked All Hail Megatron. I thought there was some really amazing little character moments in there. Like I
It is,
love
yeah.
like just turn your mic off, Shane. Like or turn your I'm gonna flatter you. I told him I really liked the relationship between Soundwave and Frenzy, that I thought he really captured, that like the caring side of Soundwave. And then also the Seekers, to get specific, that they made themselves look like their commanding officer as like a sign of honor. I really liked a lot of that stuff. So good work, Shane.
Yeah, I thought some of the dialogue in that story was some of the best aspects of it. I really liked some of the little quips and the little banner between, like, I think it was what, Bumblebee and Wheeljack, and or it's been a while. I'm sorry, but like, yeah, I really like the dialogue.
Oh.
I feel so uncomfortable right now.
You're getting compliments, lots and lots of
Thank
compliments.
you. Yeah, thank you.
So this next question is about you guys and what you worked on. What was your most favorite comic book series that you worked on? It doesn't have to be Transformers. Any comic series you ever worked on.
Someone want to go first, or we just keep the same order?
Anybody can go first. Whoever knows the answer first, go for
Livio
it.
doesn't want to get it wrong again.
Okay, I just did my first ever original sci-fi series called The Kill Walk. So that was like I was really happy to have that accomplished. It's something I've always wanted to do, is do like an original story. So that was really special for me.
For me, I'm thinking of two things. Like, one was again, I worked with John Barber on the Bumblebee prequel comic thing, which was set like in a 60s spy genre in like swinging London in the 60s kind of a thing. And I'd always wanted to do that kind of story where you mix like a generic kind of James Bond kind of 60s spy movie with Transformers, because like, you know, it just seems to fit with the vehicles and the gadgets and the, you know, imaginary craft that you'd see in those old movies and stuff. So I even was going to, like, years ago they did like Heart of Darkness, and that was going to be a series of Transformers, like Elseworlds kind of stories. So I was going to pitch one set in like a 60s spy movie, but they told me that, you know, that series had been shelved, so it just kind of sat forever. And then when John and I were going to do the prequel series for Bumblebee, that was where he wanted to take it. So I'm like, yeah, I'm right on board with that. So that was a lot of fun. And then right now I'm working on a 5-arc G.I. Joe story with Larry Hama, which is like a comic that I read, like one of the first comics I ever read as a kid. So I've always wanted to work on that. So I'm getting to work on that now. So that's a lot of fun.
And working with Larry, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's brilliant.
That's cool.
For me, I think, I mean, you know, Batman, I think it's like, you know, it was such a big thrill to be able to work on that. And I think I was, yeah, at the time it was like such a cool feeling to be able to write on a book that I had read so much. So I think it was because I was a big fan of Batman growing up. So that was a really big deal. Although I will say, like, whenever, because sometimes people ask that, and my wife's there, and so she was always like, yeah, but you didn't get a Happy Meal out of that, because over here Drift was a Happy Meal, so a McDonald's Happy Meal. So she's always like, that's the cool one, not the Batman. So, but I don't know. For me, it was Batman.
Shane, can I ask you, when did you find out Drift was going to be in Age of Extinction? How did you find out that character was going to be in the movie?
I think somebody emailed me. That's the movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I
One
think
official from Hasbro, or
no. I think somebody. Actually, it might have been Trev. Like, it might have been Hutch. Actually, emailed me when they'd announced it. I honestly can't remember, but yeah, it was. I think I got the like an early. Maybe it had been announced. But I wasn't told in the lead up. Like, I wasn't aware that he was going to be in there. I mean, I'd made a joke a long time ago at a panel about, you know, he might turn up, but so it was surprising, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Did it pay off your house?
If only I'd gotten any money to do with any of the toys with the guy that I created.
Right.
What would be your number one book recommendation? And Livio, if you want somebody else to start first, that's totally fine.
Oh, whatever you guys want.
I'll start because
Go for it.
I'll start
Do we mean comic or do we
because
mean
let's keep it about Livio. I was gonna say if you like smart science fiction, maybe try The Kill Lock because it's a very clever little book. It's got a great pinup in the first issue. And I think a lot of time, like the best stories that you're going to get and the best art you're going to get out of a creator is their own story. So if you guys haven't had a chance, check out The Kill Lock, which is Livio's creator-owned book.
Thank you, buddy. There's quite a few. I mean, if we're talking comics or books like novels, I mean, I think my favorite comic book ever is still The Dark Knight Returns. I think for anyone who hasn't read that, that's just such a masterpiece comic book. Like the art, the writing is perfect. My favorite novel I've read in the last several years was Gone Girl, I think. So even if you've seen the movie, even if you like the movie, I would really say read the book. It's some of the best writing I think I've ever seen about getting into like two kind of conflicting narrators, like contradictory narrative structures in that book. And I was really blown away by that.
So as far as I read a lot of books, but I think right now, you know what? Right now, given where we are and how the world's going, I think I'd really recommend, if anyone hasn't read it, there's a book called Tuesdays with Maury, which is a fantastic book. It's not a huge read, but it's basically it's a university, I think you guys call it college lecturer who finds out he's dying. And so then one of his students ends up kind of spending every Tuesday with him, and it's the lessons that he learned from him along the way. And it's just incredible. It's really about embracing life and being compassionate and being kind. And it is really a wonderful book. And I think right now, if we all want to have a bit of a reset and read something to kind of kick us back into gear, that's a good one to read. As far as comics, these days, I really recommend Saga a lot. There's a comic called Saga, written by Brian K. Vaughan and art by
Fiona Staples.
Thank you, Fiona Staples. And that's outstanding, and it's really wonderful. It's different, and it's a romance. It's a kind of a space epic, and I think it really fits firmly into an area where a lot of people can enjoy it without feeling kind of excluded if they don't know about superheroes and stuff. So.
Very cool. Very cool. Guys watching, you should look into that. Shane, I'm going to let you answer this one first. Oh, no. So obviously you guys have traveled a lot because of your careers and everything. So coolest place you got to travel to because of your career?
Because of my comic career, I would say Japan, specifically Tokyo. So I'd been over there to Osaka because of my dance career, but being there, it was two reasons it was super cool. One was meeting the Japanese Transformer fans blew my mind. Like they were just incredible, just the most wonderful fans, the most engaging questions. It was really, and I was really overwhelmed with the love for all how Megatron. I mean, it had been translated. That's why I was over there. It had been translated into Japanese, but they were just so. Look at this guy. Like this is a Japanese fan made this for me, and it's a little like what is that felt? And they'd made a little drift, and it's got like a removable sword, and it's got like little magnets in the hand. Like it was, and they were just like, "This is for you," and I'm like, It was amazing. And the other reason was because it's when I met these guys. So we had such an amazing time, and you can go to a lot of different places and you might meet people, but you don't come away with really wonderful friends. And being at that convention with these guys and getting two lifelong friends out of the experience was wonderful.
I think Livio and I are going to have the same answer for this one. We both fell in love with Japan, and we've been over there multiple times. And I don't know what it is. Like the first time we were there, Livio and I were both like, yeah, this is just kind of like an average city, We were jet lagged, and it was just kind of what was the thing again that Livio that woke us up to it, made us fall in love with it? There was something that happened.
The first time we got there, we stayed at a hotel in an area that had some neon signs. So we were like, oh, this is, you hear about Tokyo neon signs, this doesn't look that impressive. And then we walked 2 blocks past that, and then it was the most mind-blowing thing we'd ever seen. I think we just stayed at a bad hotel the first time, but then that trip, that changed our lives. I remember discovering Golden Guy and what Shane was saying, the fans over there are incredible. Like the warmest. Andrew and I both got so many presents and little gifts and sake bottles that we each had to buy another carry-on bag to get it back to the mess. It was unbelievable. Like, yeah, they
took a little side trip to Kyoto, and we had to do a little shopping. It was kind of like a Japanese Walmart. I remember I bought it at.
Yeah,
the luggage.
I remember that. Yeah.
Oh, so yeah, we got there, and we had one event that was a signing at a bookstore / toy store. And we walk around the corner, and we see this line of like 100 people lined up, maybe more, like on a 10 a.m. on like a Tuesday morning or something. It was like a random day. And we're like, what's this for? We're like, oh my gosh, that's for us. And then they opened up like this big door to the outside, and they all came through, and they all got our autograph, and they all like asked us a question or something and moved their way through. And then our translator was like, by the way, you can buy something. So they all came back through again and looked at our prints and looked at the books we had for sale and stuff. And like, they were just overwhelming. It was amazing.
And then I remember just right after that, we migrated with like, remember we walked with like 40 of them to a toy store, 40 fans, and us went to like a 7-story toy store. And
yeah, we went through Hama, and a bunch of them kind of followed us around, and we'd stop, and then we'd look back, and they'd stop, and then we'd keep walking. But it was an amazing experience.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so
and
much
of course,
fun.
like Shane said, I mean, on one of the trips we met him there. I remember too, it was like a group night, and not to embarrass Livio, but Livio's like, man, I really don't feel like going to this. I just want the two of us to go out and like have fun and explore Tokyo. And then here we go, and like we get sat next to Shane, and it was just like he said, we just became like best friends over that trip.
It was fantastic. Yeah, because I remember sometimes when you at a Comic-Con, especially when you're tired at the end of the day and someone wants to do a long dinner, you're like, God, if you're sat next to someone you don't want to talk to, it's a long night. But with Shane, and we met Guido for the first time with you on that same night. And that was so fantastic. I mean, we became instant lifelong friends that night. Yeah.
I actually had met Shane, like 10 years before, back in like when you first did All Hail Megatron, I met him at a big dinner party like that for IDW.
Yeah, was that in San Diego, right?
Yeah, when you were there that year that All Hail Megatron was coming out, I think.
Yeah, I remember that.
And you had gone through a lot of stuff because of it at the time, so I remember you being a little more, I don't know, jaded, would that be the word?
I don't know about jaded, but it was a little bit, there was some kind of like, there was some stuff going on, and it was just like, like Livio was saying, at that point I was just like, I was just tired, run down.
So this question is for Shane. Will you ever come to another convention in Australia? Hopefully Sydney.
Hopefully Sydney. They have COVID. I'm not going there.
Not until COVID's gone.
Yeah, we don't have COVID where I am. Yeah, I mean, I think, I certainly do enjoy the Australian cons. I think I need to do some more comics before I do another comic convention. So it's been a little while. I had a choice between my dancing career and my writing career at one point, because both are international. And given my age, I was like, all right, I need to focus on the dancing first before I lose mobility. And so I ended up stepping out of comics. So I'm actually just getting back into working in the industry, and I'm talking with Penguin US at the moment about a comic that I'm very excited about, and they're very interested in. So if that goes ahead, then I'll be, I'll have something that I feel like I can go to a convention about. But at the moment, it's been so long, I don't think I deserve to walk in the door.
Oh, I think the fans will agree. You do deserve to definitely walk in the door. You definitely do. All Hail Megatron was an amazing comic series. It really was. But I am curious, Livio, Andrew, are you guys working on any current projects at the moment? It could be anything, not just Transformers.
Livio just had something announced, right? Didn't?
So are you talking about War Chief? That one?
The heavy metal thing, or that is
public,
right?
Oh yeah, it's like a little short story. Yeah, I did a short story for Heavy Metal magazine, so it's just a little like 6-page thing, but it was a blast. I mean, it was like, heavy metal is such a staple of science fiction. Like to have something in there is really cool. And then Chris Metzen announced he's creating this new company called War Chief, which is going to be like, I can't say too much, but I'm part of that company working on projects with that. But I'm really excited about that too. So yeah.
Well, yeah. Right now, I'm working on, like I said, that G.I. Joe story arc with Larry Hama, and then I just started on something else that I'm really excited to work on. Another franchise property that I'm doing on the side that I'm really excited about that I don't think I can talk about yet because
that's okay. Don't risk it.
So that's what I'm doing right now.
Very, very cool. Another question for Shane. When you were writing All Hail Megatron, how much was already planned? They added either formally or just between writers brainstorming about Megatron's future and that continuity.
Megatron's future, yeah. So nothing was planned. So the idea was, so when I mean, it's the same as I mean, the guys know this. It's the same as when you work on, say, Batman or Spider-Man or a new book. When a new writer comes on, it's very common that they will bring a new outlook, a new approach, their kind of way forward, and then when they leave, the next person does their own thing. So it's very rare to have someone who kind of gets writers in, but there's already a story happening. So when I came in, it was very much a do what you want or what would you like to do kind of thing. And so it was less about planning for I mean, obviously I was trying to leave some things open so that if any threads wanted to carry, it's like there were certain threads that I picked up from Simon's run that I wanted to carry forward. And then I'm assuming there's may have been some threads from what I've done that's gone forward. And I think that with Megatron, it was really more about what I wanted to say about him as a character and about his outlook and about where that the impact that would have, or more importantly, the impact victory would have on what he was trying to do, like whether or not ultimately his approach was successful. So it was less about planning for the future and more about having a statement about my feelings towards Megatron and his outlook. Yeah.
Awesome.
Can I ask a quick question to both of you guys? Was there anything in Transformers you wanted to do that you were told you couldn't? I always think that's a really interesting question. Like anything like IDW or Hasbro said no to?
Not for me, no. I mean, I mean, with Drift for sure. Like when I came up with the idea for Drift, which was, and again, it was really something that was more about fun. It wasn't going to be like, oh, this is going to radically change anything. It was, I'm writing the comic, and I thought it'd be really nice if I had a chance to bring in something new. I mean, as a kid, I read all those Transformer comics, and I had all the Transformer toys, and I never really had dreamt like one day I'll do my own Transformer. But suddenly sitting in that seat and realizing, oh, I've got a chance to do something if I wanted to. What would I do? And so when I had said to Chris, like, Chris Ryle, who was the editor at that time, and I said to him, hey, I'd love to do this, and he said, oh no, they're not gonna let you do it. They've got a thing about like no new characters. And I was like, oh, okay. But if I had a chance to, I would have done this. And he was like, oh, that's really cool. Let me just check. I'll check with Hasbro, but they're going to say no. And then we checked with Hasbro and they were like, yeah, let's do it. And then straight away they were like, let's do a toy. Yeah. So the one thing I was told I couldn't do, we did. So, but then again, it's about expectation. I wasn't pushing it to a point where they were going to say like, no, you can't radically change things. You got to be respectful to the property. So
the only thing I could think of is like when we were doing RID for those years, so many times we're like, no, we can't do that because James is doing that on the other book. Or I'd say, John, why don't we do this? He'd say, no, I think James already is doing that too much.
Yeah,
or we can't use those characters because somebody else is using them or something like that.
Oh my God, I remember that happening one time with the Dinobots, where it's like that was ridiculous. Like I think we wanted to use the Dinobots in Autocracy, and they were like, no, we can't use them right now. Like they're going to show up later on. And so I think like the video game of the Dinobots, because the Rise of the Dinobots was coming out, and then like 3 other projects all hit at the same time. So it looked like it was going to be this very intentional Dinobot month, and it was not intended that way. It just was the scheduling of everyone being told they couldn't use them. So when you got time to use them, then it was like they're everywhere. Like that. I remember that
kind of happened by accident. I remember that too.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure with Tripp, the fans are very thankful that Hasbro let you create him. So, because I mean, he is such a popular character now and still is. So that's really awesome.
It's nice to hear. Like these guys know. Like I copped so much crap when he came out.
Exactly. That's what I was referring to earlier. Was like when Drift first came out, he was such like a hated, like detested character by the fans, and then at some point it just switched around.
Yeah,
that's what I meant. Like when I first met him, it's like he had just gone through a lot with like the fandom, just kind of rejecting like the new stuff he was bringing to the franchise, and
big time.
That seems so crazy to me too.
It's worked out over time. But.
Yeah.
Griffith is such a cool looking character, and the idea of a swordsman. I mean, it's a great idea. Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think because ultimately, to be fair, because I don't. Not everybody likes everything, and I think obviously that there's a truth behind. There's a vocal minority that were kind of having a go, and the only thing that actually honestly upset me about that was watching, and it really did, because I didn't really kind of click to how the internet worked. But it bothered me that there were fans. I don't care what people say about me, but it bothered me that there were fans who were saying like, "Hey, I really like this thing," and other fans were coming in and just trashing them. And I was just like, I think a couple of times I got on the boards and I was like, guys, this is such a small fandom. You can't attack each other. Like you're supposed to be like celebrating that you like something like this, and that there's still new stuff coming out for something like this. You don't have to all say, yeah, I love a thing, but you can say just like, oh, okay, I didn't like it for this reasons, but don't like attack each other for it. And I eventually just learned just to get off the internet. But yeah, that I remember that was a thing. And yeah, and as Andrew's talking, it was a real struggle because there was a bit of a editorial. Certain comics carried over much longer than I was told they would. So then it was this weird, what is All Hail Megatron, when all the older stuff that is still coming out, and where I was told there was going to be a couple of months, there was going to be a break, it was going to be announced that like this was done and this was going, and it got very muddled as to what was happening, and I don't think it was clear for the fans where All Hail Megatron sat, even though it was very clear to the creators where it sat. I think a lot of it was confusion as well, where the fans just weren't sure. So it was actually the trip in Japan where these guys were going on about All Hail Megatron and that fans really liked Drift. And I was like, what are you talking about? I thought everybody hated Drift. And they were the ones that were like, dude, you should get online and see that people really love it. So it was really nice. Yeah.
And I'm assuming that's the same year you got that little Drift that you showed us before.
Yeah, he's really big in Japan.
Oh,
It's like,
that's
it's
great.
so weird.
It's so great. It took a little time, but yeah, he is still, like I said, a huge fan favorite, and he's even made it now into movies and TV. So like he's not going anywhere now.
Okay, he made it. He made
Yeah.
it.
So this next question's for Livio and Andrew. What are some goals that you have with your new art? Whoever wants to go first.
Do you want to go, man, or me?
Oh, I mean, I don't know. Like a lot of other, creators. I have my own creator-owned ideas. I'd like to find time to get out there. A couple things I'm working on with different people. So as far as goals with my art, I mean, I'm always just trying to get better. I'm not quite sure about like specific goals, except that I'd like to find time to put out my own original characters and ideas and stories.
Yeah, my answer is the same. It's like I definitely want to do more creator-owned stuff, like more new stories, original stories. And I think like, yeah, the stuff you want to accomplish in your own art is an interesting question, because if you look at anyone who has like a really long body of work, like Frank Miller or someone, it's like the way they draw now is so different than how they started. And I don't think it wasn't planned that 30 years from now I'm going to draw that way. It's like your style really changes whether you want it to or not. Just that's how it happens. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I think, yeah, definitely just more creator-owned stuff. I think we're all hungry to do that, more creator-owned books.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a weird thing too, because like when you're fortunate enough to be kept busy and steady with this kind of work, you don't get many chances to take like a few months and just work on like a new style or try to branch out and experiment and try a different approach. So I don't know. It's at some point I would like to try to mix it up, be a little more, I don't know, expressive or loose, but I don't know. Maybe someday I'll have time to experiment more.
Yeah, it's funny too. Like I remember Jim Lee saying that at Wildstorm that he likes doing watercolor paintings, and he said he wanted to do like an all watercolor Batman at one point. But he's like, I also know the fans don't really want me to do that. They want to come to see the stuff that they've known.
Mm-hmm.
So there is definitely that, like George Lucas can't make a romantic comedy, really. It's like when you have this poem, it's like,
oh, I saw it too.
So yeah, I mean that wasn't.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a dark comedy, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is that thing where it's like when you hopefully amass a following, you want to keep them happy, So it's that balance of like, you suddenly change everything on them. So I don't know.
So, following an art question for you guys again, your most favorite piece of art doesn't need to be Transformers, just it could be recent, could be old. What's one of the most favorite things that you ever drew?
Can I say just quickly with Livio that that Darth Vader one that you did, with that's Yeah, that's
No?
still my favorite thing that I've ever seen you do. Like,
AT-AT's on Hoth.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank
that's
you.
almost like his calling card. That's
Oh my God, that is just beautiful.
That's a
Yeah.
funny one too, because I remember like just doing that just for fun, like when I was at Wildstorm, and then that really probably is one of the most well-known things I've done, and like I've sold prints and stuff of it, and like the amount of work of like whatever 8 hours that piece took has paid off over the last 10 years or whatever, like in a way I did not expect at all. But yeah, but thank you though. Yeah.
that's tough. I mean, possibly that big mega commission thing I did. I mean, that was certainly the largest thing I've accomplished. You know, like
That thing's incredible, man.
thanks.
How long did that take you to make again?
5 years.
Wow.
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 Well, not directly, not like continuously
Yeah.
working on it, but like in between other things, back to it here and there. And
Didn't you tell me that you actually suffered damage to your vision drawing that?
oh, I didn't need glasses before that.
That is incredible. You were like
Oh
Michelangelo
no.
with problems after the Sistine
It's
Chapel.
Funny, I went back recently and I organized my original art, and like as I went through, like when I ended on RID to when I did that Bumblebee prequel to when I filled in some on Optimus Prime series and like some of the new stuff, like I could see that my line art was getting like scratchier and fuzzier and like rougher, and then once I got my glasses, like it just got so much cleaner again. It's crazy. I just never realized how bad it had gotten. But yeah, I blame that piece for my having to wear glasses. So
I had I'm sure we've all gotten them, but like really like a unusual commission request one time. It was something similar where a guy wanted me to come to his house and paint a mural of like 30 characters. And I was like, one, I'm not going to do it. But two, I'm like, what would that dollar amount be? Because that's like, it wasn't like
Oh.
something to drive to. You fly to another city, you're staying for God knows
Yeah.
how long in a hotel. Like what amount of money would it take? You know,
Take.
But I don't know. But yeah.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
definitely an
What was
interesting
your favorite
request.
art, Livio?
So what?
What was your favorite piece of art for yourself?
Oh, I really that Vader one I actually was really happy with. In terms of Transformers, the first cover I ever did was the Best of Optimus Prime. It was this trade that collected like IDW stories, and that was the first published Transformers thing I ever did. So that was really special because that was my favorite character, and they were like, "Do whatever you want with it," which is pretty amazing because usually, like, aside from Shane, when you start in comics, you don't get to start with like the top, like the top character. So that was like really, really fun, and like that meant a lot to me. So yeah.
So Shane, what was your inspiration for writing All Hail Megatron?
Oh, well, I guess to begin with, the inspiration was the request from IDW. So I was asked by, I'm pretty sure it was Chris, yeah, where they were basically, they wanted, for whatever reason, they wanted to do a fresh start, and they wanted to kind of go in a different direction. And the two things I was told was fresh start, and they wanted something that appealed to more of a broader base. So the idea was like, we certainly wanted to still appeal to hardcore Transformer fans, but they were hoping to draw attention from more, I guess, casual Transformer fans. So the initial inspiration when I was thinking about it was I wanted to do a book that had something to say that was so that would draw people in the sense of, if someone was strolling through a bookstore and they hadn't picked up comics or hadn't read Transformers and they saw that and they kind of looked at it, it was something that they'd go, oh, I know these characters. Oh, I know this kind of thing. And then they would want to pick it up and start to read it and be drawn into it. That was the initial kind of thing. And which is why I chose the G1 characters, which again, IDW were fantastic. They were like, anything you want to do, what do you want to do? And my first pitch then was, which was like on the spot. I was lucky. They were like, if you could have the comic, what would you do? And I was like, well, I'd use the G1 characters and I would want to have the Decepticons one. So, and then take it from there. Like what is their end game? Because, effectively, I've always growing up looked at them as fascists, and it's like, well, fascists need an other. And so if there's no one to otherize, what happens to them? Like, are they going to implode? And so my inspiration was to think about Megatron really believing in what he was doing and choosing this path of like, I know my end game, and in order to do that, I have to turn these people into these rabid warriors to get what I want. Okay, fine. But then when you get that, what do you do with these guys that you have turned into these killing machines? And the whole idea behind it obviously is they start to implode on each other. And so he's, from his point of view, uh, I'm doing this for the right reasons, so the ends justify the means. But then when he actually gets what he wants, do they? So yeah, so that my inspiration was to really see, and also I think in a nutshell, watching cartoons as a kid, and the Decepticons never won, and I was just like, come on, like let them win like once. So yeah, so that was the inspiration. So I wanted to kind of touch on the old cartoons, have a little bit of Michael Bay fun in there, and hence the super generic kiss to the photo in the first issue, and like just kind of like, and then try and go somewhere a little more philosophical with it.
Mm-hmm.
Funny how like that book and that new start kind of connects all of us in a way, because like some of my first G1 work was a fill-in story. No, and one of the follow-up issues, I think, and then so I did some covers, and then Livio, wasn't Chaos like the book that followed right after all of that?
It was a little farther. I think Chaos was the end of Mike Costa's run, so it was
Oh,
like,
right, that's right. There was. I'm sorry. That's right. That's right.
yeah, Chaos was like issue 20. I think it started with issue 22 or 24, but it was the end of Costa's. But yeah, All Hail Megatron does connect this, because that was the first IDW book I read. Like I remember like just reading it cold, had no idea about what had come before, like Herman stuff. Like I'd read some of the Dreamwave stuff, but I hadn't read anything for IDW yet. But yeah.
You were my target audience, Liv.
I loved it. You also answered why someone like Megatron would keep Starscream around, like a guy who obviously wants to betray him. Where you got that great idea that like the day it happens, Megatron will kind of be proud that he's kind of trained to do things capable of taking him out. That to me, I was like, oh yeah, that makes complete sense. Why you keep a dude who obviously wants to take your job around. So.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Livio and Andrew, what is your favorite cover you have ever created? So, most favorite cover, anything.
That's tough. It's funny, like I think Livio's mentioned this before too, but like we've done so much now that like we look back through, it's hard to like think of everything that we've done, and like when you look at all the pages that you've drawn, it's hard to believe how many like original art pieces I have them sitting right here, and like a lot of them. But I'm going to think about it. Livio, you want to go?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, because we still like, I do less sequential stuff these days, but I still do a lot of covers, and you get that thing of like, we need an Optimus Prime cover, and you're like, God, like I've probably drawn like 30 images of Optimus, 30 covers of Optimus. It's like, what do you do new? You know what? Like, so sometimes it's like I just did an Insecticon cover that was fun, because it's like I drawn them in Galaxies, but not really done. I did like one cover previously, so I was like, oh, there's a lot to explore with these guys, because I haven't drawn them that much. Yeah, favorite cover ever. There's an Autocracy cover I like where it's Soundwave, but in his chest is reflecting Optimus Prime, and the Decepticon logo is over Optimus Prime. There's kind of a metaphorical, like, because in that story, Optimus Prime is kind of more brutal enforcer of the system at that point. He hasn't quite become like the hero. So I like that kind of that theme.
Can I rudely sneak in? I just want to rudely sneak in. So, because I will never in my life get to answer a question. I know it wasn't directed at me, but I
answer it.
I designed one of the covers for All Hail Megatron. So when we were first doing All Hail Megatron, and again I was throwing so many ideas about how I wanted to do things differently, and one of them was that I wanted to do different covers that weren't comic book covers, and they had a lot of white on them, because whenever I'd go into a comic book store, I would just see covers look great by themselves, but when you put them on a wall, they just blend in. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted a cover that jumped out, and so I asked if I could do some of that, and he's like, well, who could do that? And then my housemate Hutch, Trevor Hutchison, is a graphic designer, and I went to him and said, if you could do this kind of stuff, could you do it? And he's like, yeah. And I actually said, he's like, what do you mean? And so I actually drew up the cover to issue 4 of All Hail Megatron, where it's a white border and then a blue star field, and it's Ironhide with his head down, and it's just got and it's that's where you meet the Autobots after they've been defeated. And so I drew that, and I was like, something like this, a different one for each one that kind of is thematic. And then when he did the issue 4, because all of his covers were gorgeous, and when he did issue 4, I was like, oh my God, that looks so fantastic. I love it. And he's like, well, it was your picture, dickhead. So it's just like, but yeah, so I'm not an artist at all, but I was very pleased that I could be like, here's a weird little sketch. Can you do this? Yeah.
I had one that comes to mind for me was on the Optimus Prime series. There's a cover I did where Jazz is sitting in Mexico City playing a bass. There's a little girl and a dog looking at him. I'm still pretty happy with that one. My very first cover was a reprint cover for The Best of the UK, and it was like Ultra Magnus getting swarmed by zombies. That one has a special place in my heart too.
Livio, it's actually funny that you brought up Starscream and All Hail Megatron earlier before for Shane, because this question is actually about Starscream. So Shane, this is our last question for everybody here, but Shane, this question is directed towards you. What's your take on Starscream and All Hail Megatron? I think his message and purpose was very clear there, but then later on, we see the same Starscream coming back regarding Megatron and the relationship with his shrine.
Yeah, okay, so Starscream was definitely one of the characters. There's a few things that I really wanted to latch onto. Like I wanted to certainly have something to say in regards to, sorry, this is a bit of a digression, but one of the things I noticed, and I think Simon's stuff is great, absolutely, was reading the IDW stuff coming in, it was grittier. So there was that feeling that when I looked at it, it was kind of like, oh, the Autobots weren't as, say, ultimately as heroic as they were when I was growing up. And so I wanted to bring in that concept of how much the war had impacted and whether or not they'd strayed from their path. So that was kind of the comment about the Autobots and whether or not their war had ultimately turned them into something that they would they still be proud of. And with the Decepticons, again, it was that endgame situation. And then looking at Starscream, it was kind of like, where does he fit in that concept? Like the idea of, as Livio was saying, if you've got this kind of abrasive guy who's just constantly biting at your heels, and like, why wouldn't you just kill him? Like, it makes no sense not to just get rid of him. So then the ultimate idea would be Megatron's not stupid. So why would he want to keep him around? So my take on Starscream, first of all, was that he's an aristocrat. So the idea is that he doesn't, if Megatron is a military commander and Starscream is an aristocratic commander, their ways of leading don't mesh. Starscream, he respects duplicity, and he respects the idea about outwitting and outthinking, whereas Megatron is someone who respects strength and power, and he's a strategist in the sense of war. So basically, Starscream sees Megatron as something that's in his way rather than something that can help him elevate. I can learn from you and become better than both of us. Whereas Megatron is looking at him saying, at some point you're going to get with the program and realize that you can be better than me, because you can learn from me and then combine it with what you do to become an ultimate leader. But until then, I'm not stepping back. So you've got to knock me out. And I think that was my take on Starscream, was that he was in his own way and was too petulant to realize that he could learn from Megatron and become something really transformative, no pun intended. And that was again, I knew whoever was coming next was going to do something different, which is, I guess, was maybe what happened afterwards. Because I feel like my hope, at least, was to leave Starscream in a position where he could evolve beyond the classic whiny character, and we could see something new. I don't know what's happened with him afterwards, so I can't speak to that. But that was my take on Starscream. I wanted to make sure that there was no, like, this character's just annoying. I wanted to make sure every character was there for a valid reason as to why you would keep them there and what they offered each other's war effort.
So guys, we are getting towards the end, but before we finish up, is there any shout outs or projects you're currently working on that you'd like to chat about? And please feel free to shout out your social medias, websites, anything you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, you can find all my work on Instagram and Twitter, just at Livio Ramondelli. I can't talk too much about stuff coming up, but anything I release will be on there. And probably Instagram is where I'm most active. And this has been a blast. Thank you again for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, and as for me, like I mentioned a couple times now, I've got that G.I. Joe arc coming out. It features a new character, and it's introducing like a new female character that's kind of like her origin story, and she's kind of the focus of the next few issues. And it's kind of weird how it was written before some current events, but it kind of reflects a few things going on right now or recently. And then also, I guess, Transformers-wise, Galaxies number 12 just came out recently, so that 3-part story arc just wrapped up. So if you haven't read that, maybe you want to check it out. Oh, and online, I usually go by Glove Studios, Glove like on a hand. So like on Twitter and Instagram and stuff.
I don't do social media, so I've got a Twitter handle, and I think there's an old Instagram, but I quit social media a while ago. So don't find me there because I'm not there. Obviously people can email me through my website, shaymccarthy.com. But I just did a fun little Darth Maul story for, I think it's Star Wars Adventures. I'm not sure of the issue, but that was a lot of fun. It was really great working with that. And the project, I'm pointing to my project wall. My project is well and truly still in the works, so there's nothing new coming out there. But I just want to say to everybody out there, stay safe and please wear a mask. And just remember, everything's stressful. Just be super nice, super compassionate. Love goes a long way. Thank you.
Livio, Andrew, Shane, I'd like to thank you all so much again for coming on with us today. We definitely had a blast having you all here. Hoping everybody watching has been enjoying themselves and that you guys also have had a good time this evening. We still have a little bit left of the convention this evening, so I hope that you keep on watching. Have a great night, everybody. Enjoy the next panel. Bye.